Hey, Coach. Just wondering. Hopefully, you've had time to forget about the weather in the last game, but just wondering. It looks like weather could be an issue again this game. At least the last forecast that I saw, it could be rainy. But
Yeah, I usually hear weather forecasts from the specialists starting on early in the week, and then they kind of give me updates. I really don't look at it until probably Saturday, but we'll prepare like we normally do for a bad weather game. And if it's a nice day, great. If not, then we'll be ready for the rain, the sleet, the wind. Obviously, last Sunday or almost 2 Sundays ago, it was ridiculous wind. And I don't know if it'll be as bad as it was then, but our guys approached it well. We approached the pregame well. I thought we were prepared. I think we had the one punt. We punted well. The first field goal was outstanding. Second one was good, and then the third one, he just didn't give it enough over to the right. He didn't hit the ball he wanted to hit there, and it just faded on him pretty quick. But it was, as you guys remember, it was pretty crazy.
and the first one by the Raiders, I mean, it just was so obvious how it just completely to the left. Was that one of the most bizarre sort of weather situations you've seen from a wind standpoint?
One of the stronger crosswinds I've ever seen. Yes, I mean I've been in games where obviously in Minnesota, I spent 8 years there. We had some outdoor games that were really windy and cold, snowy. But in terms of crosswind, that was probably the worst I've seen.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, Daryl Ryder will have our next question.
Hey, Coach, I was just wondering if you could touch on maybe your self-scouting during the bye week from a return game standpoint. You guys haven't been able to really consistently bust big returns. So what have you seen on film, and where do you think you can improve in the second half?
We'll go to kickoff return first, Daryl. I think kickoff return wise, we've had some opportunities and we've done okay. I think we're certainly in the top 10 in drive start. We've made good decisions back there. We've had a couple of decent returns out past the 35 yard line. I would like us to, it's not always going to be blocked perfectly. And I think Donovan, the more experience he gets, he'll understand that. He's always looking for that exact hole or seam that we either drew up or we saw in practice, and it doesn't always amount to that. So, he's got to continue to work hard in terms of breaking tackles and making people miss at the point of attack. And then on the punt return game, I'll be honest, we really haven't had very many opportunities. It's hard to get into a good rhythm when we don't have a lot of punt return opportunity. We've had one in the last 2 games. Now, part of that is because our defense has created so many takeaways, and they've done a nice job that way. But so I told our guys, and I told them again today, we're installing punt return today, that in every opportunity we have to take advantage, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4 returns, whatever it is. We've got to create a big play. We have to create pressure on the punter. We've got to do the things I think we do best, and that's, forcing poor punts or line drive punts, and then, getting 10 yards of it there, getting 10, 20 yards of it's there. Houston poses a huge problem because on kickoff and punt, they're on both those phases, they're one of the better teams in the NFL in both punt and kickoff. So, our challenge to our guys is, hey, we have to match their intensity, match their productivity, and we've got to get after them on Sunday.
Cool. Thanks, Coach.
Sure.
Thank you, Daryl. Next up will be Scott Petrick.
Hey, Mike, I saw the Raiders kicker after the game talk about that he was talking to Cody before the game about the wind and how to handle that. And I just wondered if that's normal, if it bothered you at all, that Cody might share some insight with the position.
So when I was in Minnesota, we drafted Steven, and Steven's a smart guy. He's a really smart young kicker, and he's obviously very good, and he's done a nice job with the Raiders this year. Actually, we had Cody. We're going to mess with him a little bit. We're going to, tell him some false stories about the win and kind of mess with him a bit. Maybe it helped him. I guess in his mind it helped him. But Cody and I talked about it before, and of course after the game, he didn't give him anything that I think helped him, and maybe it did in Daniel's mind that he got something out of that. But there was no intent there. In fact, it was the exact opposite. Because it was so windy, we were going to try to get in his head a little bit, and maybe it worked on the first one, but he learned from that one and had a good day overall.
All right, thanks.
Sure.
Thank you, Scott. Do we have additional questions for Coach Priefer? All right, we'll go to Dan Lobby for next one.
Hey, Coach, this is sort of a bigger picture around the league question. The onside kick was a big topic last year, and it seems like teams are starting to adjust to how they do it. I know you guys haven't had that situation yet, but are you kind of studying like what other teams are doing, what's working, what's not working? Do you have a better feel for kind of what might work?
Absolutely. We look at all that stuff. We look at every hands team or onside kick play. any end of game, end of half situation plays. I have Doug Coleman, who works with me on special teams. He looks at every play every week, and he puts together about 100 play cut up for me each week that I go through and study that stuff. And we actually show some of those clips on Saturday nights before games, and we go over a lot of situational football. So we feel our guys are really well versed or well schooled in terms of situational football, and we've done a nice job of end of half, end of game situations thus far this year. But we absolutely study all that stuff, see what's working. Some guys are really creative. We think we've got a good plan this week in those situations. But each week, I think if you're probably a humble guy if you've coached special teams as long as I have, because we've all been humbled in this game at some point. But you can always learn from what other teams are doing and kind of apply it to what you do best.
Thanks.
Sure.
Thanks, Dan. We'll go back to Daryl Ryder.
Another non-Browns specific special teams question for you, Coach. I always thought the rule was you stand at the 10 or the 15, and if the ball's over your head, you let it go and hope it gets into the end zone. But one thing we're seeing this year, and I don't know if it's this year specific, but a lot of fair catches are being made inside the 10 or around the 15-yard line. Why do you think that is? Has that rule of, the fair catch rule among, coordinators, has that kind of been modified recently?
I think it depends on the philosophy of the coach. It depends on the score or situation of the game. These punters nowadays, guys, are so good at pinning people inside the 10-yard line. And I know last week was difficult because of the wind, but I think anytime you get yourself in a situation where they have an opportunity to pin you inside the 10, every coach has different rules, and I'm not going to go into our rules and specifics right now, but what we tell our guys, but you're going to be aggressive if there's an opportunity to be aggressive, and you're going to let the ball go in the end zone if you feel like it's going to go in the end zone. And we do have our rules for our guys, and we're not going to tell our guy ever coach fair catch it inside the 5. I think other teams around the league have done that, and I think that's a big mistake. You noticed our Indianapolis game. If you guys recall that game where he fair caught it at the 4-yard line. It was a great punt, great job by Tavier covering. He fair catched that ball at the 4. We get a sack at safety the next play, one of the biggest plays of that game. So to me, you have to pick and choose your spots. You don't want to get it one down at the 1, but I don't think you want to make it easy on the punt team by fair catching at the 4 or 5-yard line, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Daryl. We'll take 2 more, Scott Petrick and Tom Withers. Scott Petrick, go ahead.
Mike, I think it was the Packers game when the Texans were playing them and they had a block punt and then they recover an onside kick too. So when you see an opponent's special teams make plays like that, does that just kind of raise your antenna for stuff that you might see?
They're a well-coached team. So Brad Seeley was the special teams coordinator in Houston for a while, and then his assistant, Tracy Smith, has done a nice job and it's taken what Brad did and been even more creative. He's a young guy, he's creative. And so they're a very well-coached team. And when we saw them on the schedule and when we had them after the bye, we knew we were going to use that bye to not only self-scout, but to really study Houston because they do such a good job. Obviously we raise the intensity anytime you punt the ball. That's one of the most important plays in football. So we got to make sure not only cover the punt well, but you have to protect it first. And that's kind of how we coach every play. But you're right. They're very good. They blocked a field goal as well. They blocked a punt. They recovered that onside kick like you talked about. They recovered an onside kick last year against Denver with a really nice kick by their kicker, who's also a very good player. So it's your level of intensity goes up no matter who you play. Just different phases of, trying to bring more attention to what you're trying to get accomplished.
Thanks.
Thanks, Scott. And our final question goes to Tom Withers.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Coach. First of all, give Coach Coleman my best, if you would.
Sure.
Hey, so this year, Mike, and you've been around the league a long time, home teams have a losing record.
Really?
Which has happened for an entire season since the merger. Obviously, this is an extreme season because of the circumstances. But do you feel, has it been neutralized? Does it feel that way when you go somewhere else? I mean, obviously, you guys have kind of a built-in advantage with the weather when it works in your favor.
Right.
But has it all been neutralized by the pandemic?
I think because the fans aren't in the stands. I mean, you don't have the fans going crazy when you're on defense and or when you make a big play and you can feel that momentum. I'll be honest with you. Typically, I don't feel it. I think it's more the players, and they kind of feed off that intensity and enthusiasm from our fans. Especially our fans are the greatest fans in the league. So, when they're not in there with 70,000 strong or however many our stadium holds, it is a difference. And maybe that's why I had no idea, Tom. To be honest with you, I didn't know that stat was true. But I would think because the fans aren't in the stands, and that makes a big difference, especially NFL fans, around the league.